Hello and welcome to this demo of OpenSPP, Open Source Social Protection Platform. In this demo, we will discover the main 6 steps of the creation of a financial assistance program. To do this, we're going to take an example of an imaginary country called Newland. The government of Newland wishes to set up a social protection system and, in particular, to provide financial assistance to part of the country's population. The Newland example will allow us to go through 6 distinct steps: registration, program creation, beneficiary eligibility, cycle creation, entitlement validation, and finally, cash transfer or voucher generation. The first step is registration. During this step, the government registers each individual using a tool, for instance ODK, which is also open source, or imports an existing database such as a national registry. Once all individuals are registered, we can see them right here in the platform on the registrants page. And we can also see the group's data. Each individual can belong to one or more groups. In most cases, this group will be a family or a household, but it can also be a school, for instance. Now that the population is registered and that all the individuals are on the platform, we can move on to the second step, which is program creation. This is what will then allow the distribution of the financial assistance. Let's start by giving the program a name and by selecting a currency. In our example, it is US dollar. We then indicate whether this program is designed for groups or individuals. And we can now define the different eligibility criteria for this program. It is according to these criteria that it will be determined whether a group or an individual is eligible for the program, and thus, in our example, whether they will receive or not the financial assistance provided by the government of Newland. The government may, for instance, define as eligibility criteria families with children and families with a pregnant or breastfeeding women. Once the eligibility criteria are defined, it is possible to choose whether individuals should meet all the criteria or only one of them by selecting all or any. In our example, we select any, as our program is aimed at providing assistance to families with children as well as families with a pregnant woman. We then define the parameters related to the cycle. First of all, their duration, that is, the number of days in each cycle. We also define who can approve them. We then define the amounts distributed per cycle, per group, and per individual in the group, and if necessary, the maximum number of members per group. And we also define who can approve the payments. Finally, we decide if we want to import the individuals and groups already on the platform. Let's select Yes and click Create. Our program is now created, and we can see that, for the moment, there are no cycles. We can now move on to the third step, beneficiary eligibility. First of all, we need to determine the individuals and groups who are eligible to the program. So we click on Enroll Eligible Registrants. The action was completed successfully. As you can see, 760 beneficiaries have been added to the program. This brings us to the fourth step, cycle creation. To create a cycle, we select Create New Cycle. If we now go to Cycle, we can see that the first cycle has been created. Now that we have created our first cycle, we will be able to visualize and validate the entitlements, which are the amounts of money that the beneficiaries will receive. This is the fifth step, entitlement validation. Before we can validate the entitlements, the program must have funds available. OpenSPP is integrated with the Odoo accounting module, which is used here. To add funds, we go to the Accounting menu, then select Program Funds, and click Create. Here, we indicate that the government has $10,000 for this particular program. And let's click Post. The fund is now validated. We go back to the program we created, then go to our cycle and approve it. Then we select all the entitlements and validate them. Now that the entitlements are all validated, we have finished creating the program, and the government can start distributing the financial assistance. In our example, this is the sixth step: cash transfer or voucher generation. Cash transfers can be made in different ways, such as bank transfers or mobile money transfers. It is also possible to generate vouchers. It is the functionality that we're going to use here. In some contexts, it may indeed be useful to generate vouchers. These vouchers can, for instance, be distributed to beneficiaries who will then exchange them to receive their entitlement. To generate a voucher, simply go to the corresponding entitlement, then click Print Voucher. We can see here that the voucher has been successfully generated. It can now be printed or downloaded as PDF for further use. This was the last of the 6 steps. In this demo, we have taken the example of the government of Newland, but we could have also taken the example of a humanitarian organization. Indeed, it works exactly the same way, and the steps would have been the same. This demo is over. Thank you for your attention. Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions.